Hello and welcome to Motorsport Recently. My name is Jack McKenzie, and joining me is one of my usual partners in crime, the wonderful Chris Whitfield, and not Caitlin Penny Commentary, who apologizes as she is spending some nice social time with a friend of hers at a sleepover.
She's on assignment. She's on assignment. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Of course, social contact is not really. Let's say Motorsport recently takes priority over social contact for me personally. Anyway, let's. I am 100% dedicated to this show. I'm not saying that Caitlin isn't, by the way. We have a packed show this week. In this episode, we look back at the Australian Grand Prix, the FIA WC 1000 miles of Sebring, IMSA's 12 hours of Sebring. We'll be looking back at the Indycar race from a couple of weeks ago, as we missed that, as well as Formula E from Hong Kong. And, of course, your miscellaneous points and stories that we will have missed, and we will be covering at the end of the show. P.S. We still need a jingle for that, so actually, I think I should leave my email in the description below, but I'll change that later. But first, we should mention that our thoughts and prayers are with the families of those involved in the recent terror attack in Christchurch. We will continue to stand with you and against hatred of any kind. You are in our hearts. As an Australian, this hit very close to home, and our hearts are going out to our New Zealand brothers and sisters, and we will stand with you in this tough time.
Absolutely.
Also, there was some more unfortunate news as well, with the sad passing of Charlie Whiting just 3 days before the Australian Grand Prix. And he's been such an important man in Formula One, and his legacy will be very long-lasting, to say the very least.
It's an immeasurable loss, really, to lose someone like Charlie Whiting, who, quite frankly, in my opinion, was Formula One, and any officiating that happens, you may disagree with people officiating, but the sport needs people like Charlie, and he will definitely be missed. He was one of the best in the business, if not the best.
Yes. So, without further ado, should we get into the news then?
I think so. And we're starting off with
Formula One.
A perfect lead-in.
Yes. Well, we're starting with Formula One. Now, do you want to take this story, or should I?
I'll take a crack at it.
All right. And this is the Australian Grand Prix, of course, so one of the few races per year that I could actually watch.
Because time zones.
Yes.
Because he's from the future, you see. All right, so let's start off with the Australian Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton led a Mercedes front row when the lights went out on the opening race of the 2019 Formula One World Championship. Unfortunately for new Renault driver and Formula One's resident honey badger, Daniel Ricciardo, he was squeezed off into the paved path next to the pit wall by Sergio Perez, shaving his front wing clean off the Renault. Unseen in this was the Williams of Robert Kubica, also losing a front wing and having to pit on the very first lap. Later on in the event, Carlos Sainz's McLaren suffered a catastrophic engine failure in its Renault power unit on lap 11, ending the Spaniard's race. I guess Alonso is glad that he's not in that McLaren. Problems for the Haas team when a faulty wheel gun resulted in a very slow pit stop for Romain Grosjean. However, the real battles were in the midfield. with Lando Norris outbraking Antonio Giovinazzi's Alfa Romeo, which, of course, David Croft's pronunciation of Giovinazzi's surname led to quite a few memes, including my favorite, New York pizza delivery man Joe Vinazzi.
I would also say he also pronounces Leclerc wrong as well. I have absolutely no idea. He's the only commentator that pronounces it Leclerc.
Leclerc.
Why does he do that? I have absolutely no idea. Charles Leclerc says it's Leclerc. Every other commentator says it's Leclerc. The fans say Leclerc, and he gets Leclerc.
Commentators are given a pronunciation guide before each season.
Right.
And I don't know why Crofty always botches out. Mind you, he always tries not to he puts more emphasis on the V in Danny Kvyat, but that's another Croftyism. But Lando.
Can we have a book full of Foytisms and Croftyisms, please?
Jeez. Robin Miller, please print that. So the battles in the midfield were quite intense. First, Lando Norris outbraking Giovinazzi in the run-up to turn 3. Then in turn 13 on the 27th lap, Romain Grosjean followed suit. On the 31st lap, Max Verstappen used his DRS to power by Sebastian Vettel's Ferrari on the outside going into turn 3, which I have to say was one of the best passes I've seen in Formula 1 in quite some time.
Yeah, there was some really, really top-notch racing at the Australian Grand Prix. And yes, as you said, that was a fantastic pass from Max Verstappen. And for some reason, my voice is deciding to not work right now. And it's only specifically now.
This is going well. Yes. Don't worry, we haven't had any technical issues.
Oh, please don't jinx it.
Touch wood. Touch wood.
Okay. Right.
Knocking my desk. On the same lap, Daniel Ricciardo's earlier damage proved to be too much, and his Renault was pushed into the garage and retired. Literally a lap later, Grosjean's Haas retired when it was found out that the left front wheel wasn't tightened up correctly during the botched pit stop I mentioned earlier.
Again. It happened again.
And then Gunter Steiner said Gunter Steiner says that the Haas is jinx in Australia, shaking my horsey.
And if you've seen Drive to Survive, you'll know what Gunter Steiner would have said.
Yes. By the way, watch it on Netflix.
It's so good. It's actually fantastic. Even if you know everything that's going to happen, watch it anyway.
Yes.
Don't look like a bunch of... Excuse me.
Something in your throat there, Jack. On lap 37, Danny Kvyat and Lance Stroll had a very impressive battle for the final point spot. Unfortunately, Kvyat running wide in turn 3 and sliding off the racetrack. On the penultimate lap, after trading fastest lap with both Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas set up the fastest lap of the race to clinch the extra point. That is a brand new rule for 2019.
Despite the fact that Toto Wolff was almost begging Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas not to go for the fastest lap.
Of course he would beg. Of course he would beg Valtteri to do it, but
of course no. But of course, Toto Wolff was okay. Let's talk about what Toto Wolff was trying to not get them, trying to stop them from doing. He was trying to stop a pair of racing drivers from going for the fastest lap. That is not going to work.
Absolutely. However, he would get his wish of 26 points. See the radio transmission. 1 lap later, as he took the checkered flag, holding off the damaged Lewis Hamilton, who had holding off the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton, who apparently had floor damage, and Max Verstappen's fast approaching Red Bull to score his 4th career victory. And of course, the victory was fueled by porridge.
Yes, the same breakfast I have every single day, pretty much.
But you had eggs.
Except I had eggs today, so
boiled eggs, apparently.
Yes, I had boiled eggs today.
Egg.
What I do want to say is the Red Bull seems to be working quite well with the Honda so far.
With Verstappen.
With Max Verstappen.
However, Pierre Gasly.
That was a bit disappointing.
Talk about underwhelming, unfortunately. Yes. Like,
Same would go for Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel, I'd say, as well. But I know that car actually did have problems, and maybe it was the Ferrari did have problems, and maybe Pierre Gasly was experiencing some car troubles as well.
Leclerc wasn't allowed to actually pass Vettel. Apparently, he was supposed to stay behind him.
Yeah. I think I will say though. So the Mercedes are looking blindingly quick. But I know the Ferraris had RPM issues, but all weekend they just looked lazy and understeery compared to the Mercedes, which looked like they were on rails the entire weekend. So I think Ferrari need to get some issues sorted out.
It's basically racing a Scalextric slot car versus a dump truck.
Yeah, well.
But and speaking of dump trucks, Williams.
They were slower. They were slower than the car that lapped that circuit in 2004. So in 15 years, they've gone backwards.
And the most embarrassing thing of all happened when George Russell lapped his teammate, Robert Kubica.
Wow. Well, okay, to be fair, Kubica did have problems at the start of the race with the front wing falling off.
Yes, and then he
got lapped.
Then he got lapped because he's slow. Like, while I admire the comeback, I've said this before, while I admire the comeback and the story wherein there's just, unfortunately, I don't think there's really a point.
Well, okay.
Anymore to him being in the sport, because he's just he's not prepared for the current cars.
Well, I'd like to see what would happen if you put him in something that, say, wasn't going to get lapped on a Formula 2 field.
I would have also said Formula 3, but
actually, so I was thinking about this actually. So you know how sometimes super formula cars, they can be faster than Formula 1 cars, than midfield Formula 1 cars on some circuits. Would a current super formula car be able to beat the Williams?
Well, it'd beat Kubica's for sure, but
oh, this is making me feel awful.
And of course, unfortunately, I don't think the Kubica fanboys will probably be like, "Oh, what's he saying about?" Facts, mate. Facts.
Should we move on?
Yes, we shall. And this was one of my favorite races of the weekend.
One of them, says something. It says something. So, should we move on to the
WEC?
the
WC
World Endurance Championship?
Yes, sir. And in that, it was the 1,000 miles of Sebring, which took place on a Friday due to the scheduling. And honestly, I'll get into how that was absolutely the right thing to do once we get into the end of the segment.
Now, can I just say before we start, I think this was the best race of the season other than Le Mans.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Although WEC does have some pretty good races, especially in the GTE class.
Well, the GTE class pretty much makes up for most of the shortcomings of the top LMP1 class.
Absolutely.
Most of the time.
Absolutely.
I would watch a series with just the GTE cars. I seriously would. Like, just the GTE Pro cars. Even if there was only a very limited number.
I remember something like that. It was called the BPR Global Series back in the 90s.
Anyway,
similar type cars.
Right. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Should we get into this?
Yes, or behind actually. The two Toyotas led away from the start of the 1,000 miles of Sebring on a rare Friday act. Unfortunately, problems occurred early in the race for the number 1 Rebellion and the number 38 pole-sitting Jackie Chan DC Racing LMP2 car. Later on, the number 11 SMP BR1 had a puncture which dropped them down the order. They would recover, however. The number 66 Ford in the GTE Pro class had some ignition problems leading to an extended stay in pit lane. Midway through the second hour, a massive crash for Igor Aradashev, who misjudged turn 1 and slammed into the tire barrier, riding off the number 17 SMP Racing BR1. This moment brought out the race's first safety car intervention. In the third hour, the GTE AM battle reached a boiling point when Giancarlo Fisichella turned the recently rebuilt Project 1 Porsche of Jörg Bergmeister at turn 1. Following that, the second full course yellow was caused by Daytona 24 Hours winner Pastor Maldonado when he ran wide and clouded the wall at the exit of Sunset Bend.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
Yes.
Where are the memes about that, actually? I haven't seen any yet. He's back to his old ways.
Well, to be fair, he's never been around Sebring or
I don't think he'd ever been around Daytona either.
And ironically, it was his other teammates that caused the incidents for that team at the Rolex 24. However, this safety car turned the race from a 268-lap distance race, or 1,000 miles, to a time-certain 8-hour race, which I think actually turned out better.
So, the race was never 1,000 miles. So how much
it was supposed to be?
It was supposed to be, and then they didn't do 1,000 miles.
268 or 1,000 miles. It would have taken 8.5 hours. So they just shortened it to 8.
And, well, I'll foreshadow a bit here. That would not have been particularly entertaining, particularly in this race.
Darren Turner, later on in the race, the Aston Martin of Darren Turner was flat out punted out of the way coming out of the S's by the 92 Porsche that would wind up copping a penalty for avoidable contact. Then the number 1 Rebellion of Matthias Besch spun at Tower Corner, backing up onto the racing line and nearly taking out one of the Toyotas. Then, a few laps later, Besch tried to overtake the Spirit of Race Ferrari, number 54, but leapt the curb and speared into the wall backwards at nearly the same place on the circuit. Late in the going, problems began to plague the frontrunners. First, with Jose Maria Lopez, Toyota's resident boat anchor, who hopped over a curb and damaged the left rear suspension trying to lap a GT car. Like trying to lap, I believe, the TF Sport Aston Martin. And then the number 3 Rebellion, which had a mechanical failure, forcing it from the race. Then, with half an hour left, the weather changed.
It did change.
This began a great dice on pit lane, particularly in GTE Pro. The number 91 Porsche jumping the 81 BMW Team M-Tech BMW M8 on the rush to put wets on. The final full course yellow came out when Loic Duval buried the 28 TDS Racing LMP2 Orica into the tire barrier at Tower Corner. That ended the race and paved the way for the number 8 Toyota of Kaz Nakajima, Sebastian Buemi, and that
Fernando Alonso. He's my favorite IndyCar driver, and I never thought I'd do that. Kudos to David Land.
Pick that name up and to claim victory in LMP1. In LMP2, the victory went to the Jackie Chan DC Racing sister car, number 37, of Danish driver David Heinemeier Hansen, Will Stevens, and current NTT IndyCar Series driver Jordan King, holding off the number 36 Signatech Alpine. And in GTE Pro, the aforementioned undercut of the century resulted in victory for Richard Leitz and Jimmy Bruni.
Now,
the 81 BMW was second with Martin Tomczyk, Nicky Katzberg, and Alexander Sims aboard.
So how many wins does the BMW M8 GTE/LM have now? So it won a couple of races. No, I think it won a couple of races. No, it won 2 races last year.
And it won the Rolex 24, I think.
Then it won the Rolex 24. Now it's won Sebring. So that's 4 wins.
It didn't win Sebring. The 81 didn't win Sebring. It was the 91.
Apologies.
The 91 Porsche.
Oh, yes, okay.
And in GTE AM, it was a convincing victory for the Densi Proton number 77 with drivers Christian Reed, Julian Andlauer, and Bathurst 12-hour hero Matt Campbell. The next race for the WEC is the 6 hours of Spa-Francorchamps on the 4th of May.
Excellent.
And what a race it was, let me tell you.
Now, can I just say, can we look at the 3rd place car in LMP1? That car that had Brendan Hartley aboard. And
yes,
that's a fantastic podium for them, and I'm glad Brendan Hartley has found his feet.
Absolutely. Like as I've said before, Brendan Hartley gets a lot of gets a bad rap because of his Formula One attempt. He's a good sports car driver. In fact, he's one of the best sports car drivers in the world.
And I reckon he would have been a good IndyCar driver as well if that was the route he'd decided to go down about a year ago.
Well, technically, he was supposed to be in that second Ganassi car, but circumstances. Well, but then Toro Rosso needed a driver.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was a fantastic drive from him, and as I said earlier, while it was a disappointing end, this was probably the best non-Le Mans round of the World Endurance Championship.
Actually,
in
I
this
disagree.
Season so
it was like the end was like before the safety car came out. It was actually one of the best. It was shaping up to be one of the best finishes because the BMW was actually stronger than the Porsche on pace.
Well, I'm saying I'm disappointed with the end.
Oh, yeah, with the safety car.
Yes, I'm disappointed with the end.
And also, by the way, it should be noted that in LMP2, the 31 that clouded the wall earlier came back to finish 3rd in P2.
So I want to work something out, actually. Hold on. I want to work something out. So the how many laps were actually completed in the race?
Oh, I should check this out. WEC app. I have the WEC app, of course, which is actually a pretty good app, I must say. And race results. This is going well.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely. And Kaznak, the number 8 car, actually completed rather, the words, 253 laps.
Okay, now let's have a look at this, right? Because of his brilliance and the fact that, of course, he is the best racing driver ever to have lived, as I'm sure is common knowledge, Fernando Alonso has completed the Sebring 1,000 miles in 946.22 miles.
Excellent.
just like he completed the Daytona 24 hours in 23 hours and 30 minutes.
Yes.
Because he is the best racing driver to ever have lived, and nobody stacks up to him ever.
And scene. All right, why don't you take the IMSA race? Because
right.
oh wait, there's another race at Sebring that weekend.
Race at Sebring. That was another race at Sebring.
Yes, sir.
All right. The Saturday's Mobil 1 at 12 hours of Sebring started on a very wet track, which of course was dampened by the WEC race that was previously talked about, with Elio Castroneves and Tristan Nunez on the front row. However, the race was started 45 minutes late due to persistent issues with standing water. Again, rain from the WEC race. When it got going, Nunez took off in the number 77 Mazda, which would hold the lead briefly. This race quickly turned into a Cadillac affair as the low-end torque would benefit them in the wet conditions. Pipo Derani quickly established himself as the dominant force in the early stages in the Whelen Engineering Cadillac. There may have been other reasons why that number 77 Mazda was struggling. Anyway, cars were struggling for grip early on, with quite a few cars having spins. Among them were Nunez's Mazda, the number 47 Lamborghini of Don Yont, and the number 8 Starworks Audi of Parker Chase, and even Ricky Taylor's Acura. With 9 hours, 40 minutes left, Timo Bernhard's Mazda suffered obligatory and rather embarrassing fire. Again. That race really... when
I saw that, I was on my way to my friend's house because, and I was like, for expletive deleted sakes, like. Well,
needless to say, their race.
It's always the 77. I've noticed. Well, it's always the 77.
Well, needless to say, their race really went up in flames.
But they would come back.
Anyway,
miraculously, the car would get repaired, and a few hours later, and would finish in 36th.
With 7.5 hours to go, both of the AIM Vassar Sullivan Lexuses. As a Super GT fan, I like to say Lexi, collided with both of the Philip Formwheeler, receiving the worst of it. Both would
Frommenweiler.
Yeah, with Philip
Frommenweiler.
Frommenweiler. See, this is me not knowing the names of any of the GTD drivers, which can be problematic sometimes. Both would continue. Odd incident with the number 85 JDC Miller Motorsports banana boat as Juan Piedrahita. Yes. Excellent. We'll come onto pit lane dragging a large tail of rubber that came off the right rear of the Cadillac DPI. Can I please have a pronunciation guide? Then nearing halfway, the third full course yellow came out when Jonathan Bomarito's Mazda, which had moved as high as second before a second rain shower hit a wet patch at Tower Corner while on slick tires and speared into the wall. Mazda. All right, the car wasn't badly damaged and managed to only lose one lap.
I looked at it again, and actually, I originally thought it was driver error, but unfortunately, it just seemed like he was just caught out on the wet surface because it had rained it had rained around the back part of the circuit. And but yeah, unfortunately, people are gonna say, "Oh, Mazda, new ways to embarrass," and
Mazda.
Yeah.
Yes.
However, second half.
Right, in the second half, there was some excellent racing between both Action Express Racing Cadillacs and the Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillac. The fourth full course yellow came out when Parker Chase's Starworks Audi broke a gearbox and had to be towed in. Okay, that's happened again. Not that happening again, but having more issues. The pit stop and ensuing wave around followed allowed the words today. Brilliant. The 7 Acura of Alexander Rossi and the 54 Nissan of Colin Brown to get back on the lead lap. At times, the Acura was faster than the leaders, but ultimately couldn't close in. The fifth and final caution came out when Bill Oberlin's Turner Motorsport BMW suffered a left front suspension.
Excellent.
Yes. Failure and Christensen corner with only 15 minutes to go. The race restarted with 8 minutes left, and it became chaotic as Ryan Briscoe's Ford was spun around by Andy Lally's Magnus Lamborghini. In the end, nobody could touch Felipe Nasr, who won the 12 Hours of Sebring in absolutely convincing fashion, holding off Jordan Taylor.
May I say, by the way, Felipe Nasr in his final stint put on an absolute masterclass of how to drive a DPI, because and people often say that Felipe Nasr, he was in Formula 1, he was terrible in Formula 1, but thing is,
he was in the Sauber, and Sauber, he's said things about Sauber, and he said that the Sauber that he was racing for is nothing like the Sauber that's racing now, in that they could barely even afford tire warmers. So he is a talented driver that just ended up in a really rubbish team.
And I will say that Nasr proved he actually made another fan. Well, I've always been a fan of him ever since he ran. The first time I saw him run a race was actually the Rolex 24 in 2011, where he finished on the podium. In fact, in the old style Riley chassis at Daytona, and yeah, he proved an absolute master.
Yes,
of driving those Cadillacs.
Yes, he did. He did absolutely superb. In LMP2, Performance Tech Motorsports with Cameron Castles, Andrew Evans, and Kyle Mason, I'm going to say.
Mason.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't pronounce like a posh boy. That was rubbish. I'm so sorry. Scored their first win of the season by the slim margin of 12 laps. Well, in all fairness, it would be anyone else other than Dragon Speed's first win of the season, as it's only been 2 races. But yes.
And they're not even going to be at Long Beach.
And the first win of the season by the slim margin of 12 laps.
Yes.
That's slim margin. Okay.
An hour an hour a lap. But
in GTLM, the winner was the Brumos liveried. Again, we love retro liveries. Porsche 911 of Patrick Pilet, Fred Makovecki, and Nick Tandy, who capped off an amazing final stint to hold off the 66 Ford and the number 3 Corvette. It became a battle of fuel mileage and pit strategy in GDD as well. In the end, the Lamborghini... Is that meant to be Starworks?
Stalwarts.
Okay. Oh, Stalwarts. GRT Grasser Racing used fuel strategy to their advantage to hold off the Magnus Racing Lamborghini in the manufacturer's first 1-2 finish in GTD. After the 36 hours of Florida, the next stage, the next race for the WeatherTech Championship takes place on the streets of Long Beach with the Bubba Burger Grand Prix. And
so basically, after the 2 endurance races to start the season, we go to the sprint modes. So basically, everything. The races are shorter because Long Beach is 100 minutes, and it's going to be like the intensity is probably going to ramp up in those sprint races, and hopefully, if history repeats itself, hopefully we might see a bit of surprise at Long Beach, because Mazda sometimes runs well there. And the fact that it's a sprint race, they may actually have a chance. Oh dear.
That was a phone call. Well,
that's a first. We've gone 6 episodes without a phone call.
Yes, that's happened. Yeah, brilliant.
Don't worry, it's a telemarketer.
Anyway, is that it then?
Well, I'm just gonna let people know also that the race at Long Beach will not have the P2 cars in the field. They will actually, their next race is the what's the race after? I think it's Mid-Ohio.
Calendar knowledge.
I love how I'm checking the
calendar,
the race calendar on my IMSA app while
on a show.
Yep, it is Mid-Ohio, and it will be with the P2. It'll be with LMP2, GTLM, GTD, and DPI.
Excellent. Right, should we move on?
I think we shall.
Right, we're moving on to IndyCar. The IndyCar season started a couple of weeks ago in St. Pete. Faces old and new would be going head-to-head in America's premier open-wheel racing series for the first time in 2019. Will Power... Yes, thank you for fixing my spelling mistake in the script we have here. Thank you very much. Will Power qualified on the pole for Team Penske, followed by Joseph Newgarden and Felix Rosenqvist in his IndyCar debut for Chip Ganassi. Defending champion Scott Dixon would be starting 4th. So the stage was set for the first time in 2019 for an awesome race. The race got underway and we were astonished by Felix Rosenqvist. He made his way past the 2 Penske drivers and actually managed to lead the race. Defending race winner Sebastian Bourdais' engine would give up on him, as would Ryan Hunter-Reay's. We saw the first crash of the day when Ed Jones went into the wall, and eventually Matthias Leist would get caught up in it and both would be out of the race. This would spark
Jones, by the way, would actually receive an injury to his hand in the accident, but he is at he is at Circuit of the Americas this weekend, running in his car. So that is good news for him that that the injury wasn't too serious. I believe he has a cast on his wrist, but or a cast on his hand, but that or he could have just put some ice on it and made it feel better. So yeah, I just wanted to give you an update on Ed Jones there.
Yeah, so this spark around of pit stops. Will Power was in second when he made his stop, and Rosenqvist was leading the race when he made his stop a lap later. However, he was beaten out of the pits by Will Power. However, Power would then get caught in traffic, and Newgarden would be able to make his pit stop and get out ahead of both Power and Rosenqvist. The race ended, and Joseph Newgarden took victory, followed by Scott Dixon and Will Power.
There is a theme in this episode in that we're seeing undercuts. This was another one. Joseph Newgarden setting up one of the best undercuts in IndyCar.
I would say that's actually an overcut, because an undercut's when you pit earlier than your opponents.
And using basically like your traffic to using traffic to your advantage. That was
actually an overcut.
Overcut.
Yes.
Over under on me actually understanding what over and under means.
Excellent.
The next race for the calendar is the IndyCar Classic in the at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas.
Which is this weekend?
It is. It is.
Excellent. Right. Well, of course, I won't be getting it until I won't be getting it for another few days after the race has happened. So
because Australian television deal.
Yeah. Yes. Please. Thank you very much. Please bring back the ESPN deal. That was working rather nicely.
But don't bring back ESPN as their commentators because we like the people at NBC.
Yes. Right. Should we move on?
Yes, let's move on to some Formula hair dryers.
Excellent.
Some rolling hair dryers.
Right. Okay. Well, bear in mind this is Hong Kong. So Sanya has already happened, but we wanted to cover this race because it was quite good. And I'm getting another phone call from the same people. Yes. They've called me again. I'm turning my body ringer off. Give me a second. They've called me twice now. If I didn't pick up the phone
telemarketers, I'm telling you.
No, I know who it is. I know who it is. It's not telemarketers. It's not telemarketers because I know who's calling me.
I don't want my ducks clean.
I have them in my contacts, but I didn't answer the first time around. So why would you expect me to pick up for the second time? So the ringer now is off. We won't be receiving any more phone calls. So that's
I don't want my ducts clean. Thank you.
Anyway. Okay, right.
All right, let's oh, this is going well.
Oh my goodness.
This is going jolly good.
It was an extremely exciting Formula E race. It all started with Stoffel Van Dorn taking his first ever pole position. But his first place, needless to say, didn't last very long due to Oliver Rowland. The 24-year-old Brit snatched the lead off him before turn 1 in the unforgiving street circuit of Hong Kong, which I have seen on a normal day. Fun fact. And I think the chicane is not very good track design, but that's not important. That wasn't the only excitement on turn 1, though, as the two dragon cars collided. but both of them survived. So turn 1 was actually very, very chaotic on that one. Lots of crunching.
Crunch happened.
Not long after that, there was carnage. Again, due to track design, I believe. With Felipe Nasr, Pascal Wehrlein, and Jerome D'Ambrosio all involved with that. Both of the Mahindra racing drivers were very unlucky, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Nasr had damage, which forced him into the wall and jolting him to a stop, with the rear of his car sticking out, and Pascal wasn't far behind him and was unable to slow his Mahindra down before bumping into the back of the Dragon car. Unfortunately for Jerome D'Ambrosio, he was also caught in the traffic jam, so he hit the back of his teammates. So all three of them had to retire. There was a lot of changing. There was a lot of positions changing on the first lap. Sorry, a lot of lead changes in the 45-minute race. My apologies. But at one specific moment, Sam Bird was in front, but went wide into one of the hairpins, which meant that Andre Lotterer was able to take back the lead from Bird. Whilst there was intense racing at the front of the pack, in the midfield there was drama involving Oliver Rowland and Daniel Abt, which ended in Rowland having to retire after getting a puncture. The BMW Andretti racer Alexander Sims clipped the wall on one of the hairpins, so he had to pit, ruining his race. Back up the front, Lotterer went wide at the same place Bird did earlier on, giving Bird a chance to retake the lead. But after he backed out last minute and he wasn't, there was crash. With Lotterer ending up with a puncture. So Bird actually took the lead from that, but later received a penalty for the contact he had with Lotterer, and it ended up being Eduardo Mortara who came second on track. But that isn't, yes, of course, that was not where the race ended, and it ended up taking, Jesus, words not on my side.
I'll take it from here.
Yes, please.
Bird stood on the top step of the podium looking rather concerned and disheartened due to the possibility of a penalty for the incident with Lotterer. The day ended with Bird being given a 10-second time penalty, promoting Eduardo Mortara to the win, followed by Lucas de Grassi and Robin Frins completing the podium.
Yes.
Which I believe actually was... Is this not the first race victory for Venturi?
I believe it is. I believe it is actually. Thank you for taking over for the end of that story. Words were clearly not on my side on that at that particular moment. Yes. Words. So in the end, it was Eduardo Mortara who won the race, followed by Lucas de Grassi and Robin Frins. So Sanya's already happened. We will cover Sanya next week.
Yep, we will cover Sanya next week. Yes. Coincidentally, I had a classmate named Sanya, except she spelled her name with a J instead of a Y.
So Sanja.
Sanya. Yeah, she was I believe actually part Yugoslavian?
That's oddly specific. Should we move on? Because it's time for...
You got to include the throat clearing. Miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and therefore are covering now. TM. Bing!
Yes. Please send us a jingle.
My best yet.
Please send us a jingle.
Now, for those of you who watched the WEC race from Sebring, you'll notice that a very interesting thing happened with 3.5 hours to go.
I'm a rocket man. Rocket man. I'm so
Jack's doing his best Elton John impression. Now, are you wearing the giant glasses?
I can find some. If I find some, I'll put my webcam on. You take that
Face
story.
reveal when?
I've already done a face reveal.
Well, we already know, Jack, that you're going to be
Hold on. Yes, what were you saying?
So anyway, the Delta IV rocket, which was carrying a satellite for the International Space Station, launched successfully during the Sebring 1,000 miles, which actually was one of the coolest things I've ever seen, because I watched both the race and on another tab, because I have multiple tabs open on my internet browser. I watched the launch, and the launch was actually quite successful. And the reason I bring this up is because Sebring is actually about a few miles away from Cape Canaveral, the Kennedy Space Station.
Chris,
yes.
I found some glasses.
Are they rose-colored, Elton?
They're not rose-colored, but they are quite big.
Are they Elton John?
Well, I have it from a game of Guess Who that I got in a stocking for Christmas once. Well, I think it's Guess Who. Yes. Oh, it's Who Am I? Yes. So it's pretty much you have a pair of glasses and you write with it on a pen. Let's see if I can
Go on, let's see them.
Let's see if I can stop screen sharing and I'll show this to everyone. Oh my gosh.
Are you Elton John?
Yes, I think I am Elton John. All right, let's not do that. I will continue screen sharing. Oh, and present to everyone.
Yeah, by the way,
that's enough of that.
Absolutely.
No more.
By the way, I just checked the distance between Kennedy Space Center and Sebring.
Yep.
It's 165 miles or a 2.5 hour drive away from the circuit.
Right.
So you could see it from turn 10.
Interesting. Proceeds to play Rocket Man.
Or Space Oddity by David Bowie. But
all of which we love.
Absolutely.
See, this is what happens when Caitlin's not here. I think Caitlin she keeps us in check, and then as soon as she's not here, we start wearing glasses that say Elton John on them.
I'm sure Caitlin's enjoying this, though.
If she is watching. Hopefully she is. Anyway, should we move on?
Yeah, it was announced that Carlin Racing has been confirmed as an entrant for the European Le Mans Series for 2019, which is a great thing for the already strong LMP2 field in ELMS, and great for Carlin that they're actually expanding beyond single seaters.
Interesting.
And now there were also some other races that took place at Sebring that weekend.
Most of them were IMSA races, I believe, weren't they?
They were, yes. The IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. Tyler McQuarrie and Jeff Westphal won the race. The first win, actually, for the Audi R8 LMS GT4 in North America. And TCR was won by the Daytona winners Tom O'Gorman and Shelby Blackstock, who, by the way, is, for those people who don't know, Shelby Blackstock actually is the nephew, I believe, or is related in some fashion to country music star Reba McEntire.
Excellent. And the car they were driving was a Honda Civic TCR, so
It
VTEC.
was.
VTEC. Just waiting for the VTEC to kick in.
VTEC intensifies.
Shingo to participate in TCR when? Or are you not up to that in Initial D yet?
Yes.
Have you seen the episode with Shingo yet?
I haven't, no. Haven't had time. And also, there was actually this Daily Sports Car article about the 1998 Japanese GT 300 champion, who was also of the name Shingo. I highly recommend reading it as well. He lost his life in 1999 in a Toyota Supra, sadly. And
should we not talk about that and move on?
Yes, because there was also the IMSA Prototype Challenge race that was held. Now, that race, I believe, was a 3-hour affair, and Stephen McAleer drove a solo race to score the victory there in the IMSA Prototype Challenge event. And let me just say, like, well done to him, because those races are 2 or 3 hours, and most of the entries have driver changes. And it was a really hot day.
So that's impressive that he's pretty much done an endurance race by himself.
I remember actually they used to do that back in the old GTP days. Back in the
they used to do it during Le Mans. You'd have drivers doing pretty much the entire thing.
Yeah, well, back many years ago. Yeah, and oh, what was I gonna say? Words are not coming.
They're not working today, are they? Not. They're not on our side, are they?
No.
Hmm.
So, shall we move on? There's another article, another story here. Spirit of Race has withdrawn their number 55 Ferrari from the Le Mans entry list.
Oh dear.
Citing a an unavoidable family commitment.
What sort of family commitment would take priority over an?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. However, the first reserve spot, which, as I mentioned a couple episodes back on the Le Mans entry list day, and the subsequent rant about how that was mismanaged, the reserve spot actually will go to the Duquesne Engineering number 30 Orica Gibson in the LMP2 class. So they will get the 60th grid spot.
Right. I'm still astonished that the Spirit of the Race car's been pulled out for a family commitment. I mean, it's not like skipping school sport because you have an unavoidable family commitment. You are skipping Le Mans because of an unavoidable family commitment.
These things happen. These things do happen.
I'd be interested to know what it actually was. But anyway, now Zach Speed.
Yes. Anyone here remember years ago when Zach Speed ran a Chrysler Viper in at the Nürburgring 24 Hours and the VLN series?
Well, I remember various Dodge Vipers racing, and that I'm assuming that is obviously one of them.
And winning, of course. Yeah, they're back in a Viper in 2019.
It's good to see the Viper in competition again, I will say.
So the Snake is back.
Yes.
And
Jeez.
also the VLN. There actually was a VLN race at the ring this weekend. In fact, earlier today, in fact. I'm saying in fact a lot. And it was won, for those that want to know, it was won by John Edwards in a BMW. With a last lap pass on Patrick Pile in the Rova BMW.
Interesting.
Yes.
Should we talk about? So we have 35 cars for the WEC Spa entry list.
Yes, and this actually will include G Drive, which will make its first appearance, I believe, since Le Mans.
After they were disqualified.
Yes.
And it took 6 months to figure out who'd actually won the race.
Yes. Yes.
By which nobody really cared. Because, anyway, right.
Yes, and what was I going to say? Also, the return of Bicolis.
Oh, good. Finally.
Bicolis, everybody's favorite bonfire, is back. But I always am rough on Bicolis, but God bless them, they try. But yes. Bless them, they try, bless them, and we love Bicolis, and they of course are back with Gibson power for 2019.
Well, maybe that will actually be better. Maybe the Nissan power plant is what was holding them back. We don't know.
So far, the Austrian team currently, according to Daily Sports Car, yeah.
They've done what?
The Austrian team currently has one driver entered too, Tom Dillman, as the sole driver at the particular moment.
He's going to do the entire 6 hours. Excellent.
No, he's not going to do that.
Speaking of which, I wonder
also, if Roman Rusinov and John-Eric Verne will be competing in the 6 hours of Spa.
Now,
for drive.
I do have another question relating to that, and that is, will Fernando Alonso be able to win the 6 hours of Spa in 5 hours? Question mark.
Well, he won the 6 hours in 6 hours last year.
So can he do it in a record time? The man who's somehow finishing endurance races faster than anyone was supposed to finish.
But that's in endurance races in Florida. Also, Rusinov and Verne will be in the car with LMS champion, LMP3 champion Joe van Uitert, who will make his WEC debut. Loic Duval will be replaced at TDS Racing by Norman Nato. Larbra competition. There is an open seat for the third driver alongside of Erwin Creed and Romano Ricci. And in GTE, the Corvette that raced at Shanghai and Sebring is not on the entry list in GTE Pro.
Anyway, should we move on to some IndyCar news?
Yes, and actually, this is one that has been met with a little bit of controversy and a little bit of criticism. It is Danica Patrick, who is joining NBC's coverage of the Indianapolis 500 as an analyst.
Now,
Not
why,
in the booth itself, though.
now, why would she? Why would this be met with criticism?
Because because fans plus Danica equals ugh. I have to say, like, I watched her in the booth for the she did some races in the Xfinity series in the commentary booth for Fox Sports.
Oh yeah.
And she actually did a decent job in the booth at Talladega and Michigan, I believe.
Well, you could say that I could be an analyst because I was supposed to be doing a race at Daytona last night in Project Cars 2, but because my internet was too rubbish, I spent it in the booth. So that happened.
Well, you're an analyst.
I was an
You're
analyst.
an analyst. And yeah, the thing is with Danica, like, she's actually not a bad commentator either. But like, she wasn't a bad driver. She just, unfortunately,
She made a dodgy career move to NASCAR, and she shouldn't have done that.
no, she made a dodgy move, I think, milking her Motegi victory for all it was worth.
Mind you, a win's a win. And
Absolutely.
I'd milk an IndyCar win.
Yep. Yep.
I'd be like one of those memes where it's like, no, where it'd be like, no one, Jack McKenzie. Hey guys, did you know I've won a motor race? Anyway.
Well, some more recent examples: Trevor Bayne, Derek Cope, and like, oh, I won the Daytona 500 out of a ride.
Anyway,
and then we're getting some Nando some Alonso.
Can we just say that
Nando watch?
All right. So everyone's favorite IndyCar driver, and do you want
Nando watch?
Nando Alonso. He has he's actually admitted to talks to Zach Brown at a potential Bathurst 1000 drive with Walkinshaw and Andretti United, which means that he might just be about to become everyone's favorite supercars driver as well. So that's actually really quite interesting. So Fernando Alonso, if he comes to the mountain, if he comes down under and he goes to the mountain, then if there's the potential that he could win there, then he will officially have ascended. Then all he'll have to do is do the Daytona 500, and he has done literally every single important race in the world.
Yes, and first of all, we gotta have like a big, flashy Nando watch graphic.
Nando watch. We'll have it. If there's any more Fernando Alonso news, I'll tell Finicaro. I'll tell Finicaro, who's done the poster that you're seeing on your screen, to put a big old logo in there that says Nando watch. It'll be brilliant.
It's graphics.
Nando watch. Yes, that's you saying that in chat. Brilliant.
Also, we've learned today that telemarketers hate him.
Well, it's not so much telemarketers, more. I know who it is. I'm not going to say it on camera though. But
it's a friend of yours.
It's not a friend of mine.
Oh, then it's some person randomly calling you.
I'll tell you after the show. It doesn't. I won't say it now. But on that interesting piece of news, I think it's time to end. I'd like to thank at Finicaro for making the poster and making the posters that you see every week. Thank you to Freya Edwards for writing the article on Formula E. Thank you to the wonderful Chris Whitfield who has joined me today.
And a shout out to Caitlin Penny commentary for who is not here at the present moment, but we will see her next week, and we'll be back to full strength. Hopefully,
I've been Jack
before
McKenzie.
I get sick.
Oh, good. Right. I've been Jack McKenzie. This has been Motorsport Recently. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye for now.